Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
This is Dom of X, and today we are back with another first look at another DC Finest collection. This time we have Supergirl, the Girl of Steel, so let's go ahead, dive in, and kick this off. Welcome back to Near Mint Condition, a channel where you can be a part of an honest and positive community. This is DC Finest Supergirl, the Girl of Steel by Otto Binder, Jerry Seigel, and Jim Mooney. This collected edition is $39.99 and it clocks in at 624 pages, so this is one of the bigger ones out there. This collected edition reprints stories from Action Comics 252 to 288, Adventure Comics 278, Superman 139 and 140, and issue 144 on top of that, Superboy number 80, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane issues 14 and 20, and Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen issues 40, 46, 51, and 57. Now, has this been collected before? Yes, it has been collected in multiple collected editions before by DC Comics, which it does include the Silver Age Omnibus Volume 1, the Superman Silver Age Omnibus Volume 1, as well as the 2 trade paperbacks for the Silver Age Supergirl collections. Now, I will also add that there are 2 stories in here that are previously uncollected, and that is Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane, issue number 20, and Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, issue 57. Stories where Supergirl is suddenly Lois's adopted kid and where she marries Jimmy Olsen. They've been previously uncollected, but I'll get to those in a bit. Nonetheless, here is a look at the front. Here we do have Otto Binder, Jerry Seigel, and Jim Mooney, all of these creators who have had the most contribution as far as this collected edition is concerned. Here is a look at the spine, Supergirl, the Girl of Steel, and from the years 1959 to 1962. And if you take a look at the back, we can see that we do have highlighted issues from Action Comics, and including one from Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane. Although I am surprised that they didn't put Jimmy Olsen covers, at least one Jimmy Olsen cover, on the back of the issue. They do have the timeline here as well, along with the collected editions and everything else at the bottom, as the same trade paperback format that they've been doing with the Presenting DC Finest Stories is also all in here. Go ahead and take a look inside. Here is, of course, the front cover, which does feature and illustrate the cover by Curt Swan from issue 252 of Action Comics. You take a look at the inside here with the title page and all of the accredited / creator rights to specific characters. Look at the copyright information here on the left with, of course, Mort Weisinger as the regular editor of the original Action Comics series and also Superman and whatnot. Reza Lockman as the regular editor for the DC Collected Edition line. Here's a look at the table of contents, which does illustrate that all art is by Jim Mooney unless it is otherwise noted. Where you do get the introduction to who this brand new character is and the mapping appropriately throughout all of the specific issues and the title of these books. With, of course, again, more art by Jim Mooney there on the sideline on the overlay of the art, and the content warning. For those who are wondering, this hasn't been censored or altered. This is the content as it was published back in the late 50s and the early 60s. All right, slight spoilers for those who are unaware of Supergirl's origin story, which is revealed here in the pages of Action Comics 252. Just a quick side note for those who are wondering about these Silver Age stories, a lot of the comics here that are presented in this book are backups to the regular Action Comics ongoing. There were usually 2, 3, or 4 stories that filled up these specific issues, and in the case throughout of this book, a lot of them are the B or C stories of the Action Comics, Superman, Jimmy Olsen, and Lois Lane books for specific reference. So if you guys are wondering, was Supergirl prominently featured? Was he the main star of these books? No, of course, the main star was Superman in the Silver Age, and as presented, a lot of the stories in here are backups to the regular ongoings that Superman or his love interests or his friends from the Daily Planet are. So just a quick side note again for all of those wondering, if you are not familiar with the story of Supergirl, which is laid out here, it's the first issue that you get. A rocket does crash land, and Clark Kent, as he is working, figures out, well, gotta go figure out what's going on. So he finds out that there is a young blonde-haired girl that is out of the rocket and reveals herself to be very much related to him in pretty much every aspect and manner. We get the backstory as to what happened to this girl as she is sent out and flown to Earth, Zor-El, through the pages of Action 252. Figures out, well, since we're here in a bubble floating in space and kryptonite is damaging our people, I need to send off my kid over to planet Earth with the other person who just happens to be related to her. They find out that they are related. They find out that Zor-El and Jor-El, respectively Supergirl and Superman's parents / fathers, are related. They're cousins. And lo and behold, we get this story of how Supergirl is entered into continuity. For those who are also wondering, this is not the Supergirl that you would expect out nowadays. It is very much so different than the stories that you would read in Peter David's Supergirl, or even more modern stories that you would find in Steve Orlando's Rebirth run and the Mark and Draco run that ran in the late 2010s, that ran alongside the Justice League Dark, Justice League Odyssey books. So if you are expecting something similar in that aspect, this is not the book for you. There are going to be some fun adventures in here, but a lot of this is very much the Silver Age type of stories. Supergirl is also now known as Linda Lee in this book. Superman even equates this, as Supergirl gives herself the identity. He says, man, that actually is kind of similar to Lois Lane and Lana Lang. How coincidental is that all of my love interests, or that people who I know are females that are related to me in some aspect, have the initials LL. So she is known as LL in this book. And early on, she adapts a personality as she is part of the Midvale Orphanage. She is taken in and she has to adjust herself to the regular world. But she's also trying to grow out of it. She's trying to tell Superman, I can deal with stuff on my own. I don't need you to worry about concealing my secret identity and hiding myself from the rest of the regular world. It very much is, a lot of these stories are anyways trying to live up to the mantle that Clark Kent / Superman sets up for himself in these pages of the Action Comics backups. A couple of these are very, very interesting. In the case of Superman Lois Lane, issue number 14, where Superman is trying to marry Lois Lane, and Supergirl is trying to sway him not to do that / not to happen. So she actually sends in a card that is forged handwriting from Batman. It says Batman is interested in dating Lois Lane, even shows up as Batwoman to try to get Lois Lane to date him. So she forces a wedge upon herself in the middle so that the things that she doesn't want to happen to Clark don't happen. There's even one story where she goes back in time to meet very important women in history, such as Pocahontas and Betsy Ross. She actually even meets up before Pocahontas saves John Smith from certain death, which I thought was a super interesting issue. But we also get to see very much a lot of what makes Supergirl. Does Supergirl have the same powers as Superman? Is she as powerful as Superman? Is she as strong as Superman? Can she do the same things as Superman? Are we actually going to believe that she is able to do a lot of the same things that Clark does? And we find out very early on that she does indeed. If you look at the pages of issue number 80 of Superboy, found out that she can break the time barrier and go through certain periods of time. Like I mentioned earlier with the weird story with Pocahontas and Betsy Ross, she throws herself back in time to meet a young Superboy, and we find out that she can do a lot of the same things that Clark does. And a lot of the stories are trying to equate her as far as power levels are concerned, that she is able to do whatever Clark can do. as a character. There is also an issue here where we are very quickly introduced in the pages of the Adventures of Superman that red kryptonite is very much a thing that is running in the DC universe. We get a story where Clark finds red kryptonite and they're telling him, you can't do that because, well, Superman, I should say, you can't get the kryptonite because something bad is going to happen to you. And overall, there are plenty of stories like this where Superman throws himself into peril and Supergirl and even Krypto have to come in to save the day. And we are very much interested in figuring out what red kryptonite is in difference of with regular green kryptonite and what it does to affect Superman. In the pages of this book as well, we can also see her ties to the Legion of Superheroes. This is a recurring theme with her and Clark that we find out there is something up with the Legion and her allegiances / relationship to them. She is saved by multiple people because they want to say, don't use your powers in public because that will lead to people eventually finding out your identity. You got somebody using electric powers and electric bolts to say, hey, I need to protect you. You can't afford losing your secret identity to the public. Same here with a lion attacking her innocently. Somebody goes out to save her and says, you can't show yourself out to the public. And we get to see multiple stories like that where we are introduced to the greater Legion of Superheroes and what that exactly means in terms of their relationship with her and overall the growing connections that she has with the Legion of Superheroes. And the weirdness of it also does continue because Clark and Lois Lane, or Superman and Lois Lane, decide to tie the knot, and Supergirl, even though she is Superman's cousin, is now thrown into the wind and saying, hey, could you adopt me? Lois is very infuriated that Clark is spending less time with her. Can they balance out? We get a nice little story here that features Lois and her being very, very upset that she is getting less time spent because of the adoption of a daughter. One thing I also like to highlight with the DC Finest trade paperbacks is that they also like to include little pamphlets or little stories that are included in the time where you can find out, oh, I can vote for certain things to happen in certain issues. I'm actually very interested to see if they include, whenever they decide to collect Death of the Family, with Jason Todd's death, people got a chance to vote for what Jim Mooney's next haircut will be given for Linda Lee. This also resolutes in before the pages of Action 282. And we also get a nice touch as you get to see that new haircut happen for the rest of the book. It's a very nice added touch where sometimes I know a lot of people, I know it's like for me, I like to see characters change some of their looks, whether it's an outfit or a costume that you can tell, okay, the character was given a revamp because a new artist came in or something happened. And to see that Jim Mooney / DC gave people an opportunity to see Linda in a different civilian haircut, that is a nice added touch to see the progression of that happening throughout the book. Most of the artwork is by Jim Mooney, as aforementioned, who is also known for inking The Amazing Spider-Man, with John Romita Jr. attached as, again, the inker, and also Steve Gerber's Man-Thing from Marvel. Apart from the Superman issues, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane, and Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, Mooney draws the main bulk of these Action Comic backup issues, and as the signature artist of Supergirl. We get Al Postino, who draws the first part of this specific trade paperback, but it is Jim Mooney who does establish the skirt. His stamp on the character has definitely been imprinted with the S and the way that her cape goes, very much in the same style as Superman does. To a lot of people, the skirt is iconic, and we do have Jim Mooney, I think, to thank for that. Some of my favorite panels of this often include Supergirl sometimes switching out of her regular civilian wear into her action as Supergirl. We get to see her take the wig off. We get to see her transform in the same way that Clark does, which is a nice added touch. Is getting to see what the differences are and the similarities are between Clark and Linda in that same point of reference. There are some interesting things in this book, at least for me as a modern reader, that I find interesting and attached to. The one particular panel where I talked about the lion attacking Linda, that is something that you will probably, in a modern book anyways, you get to see the lion is big, it's roaring, it's probably coming at you. But because it is a Silver Age, it's a lot more, you wait to see what's happening in the panel. Each panel is a different part of the story instead of maybe intersecting. It's just a lot different than the widescreen that I'm used to seeing, the type of movie storytelling that I'm used to than you get in a lot of these books. And the most interesting thing I found out about Jim Mooney was that he actually worked for DC for much longer and also enjoyed working for DC versus Marvel, because DC gave him a higher paycheck, where he said that it was $50 a page as opposed to $25 or $30 at Marvel, and I thought that was pretty interesting to note. They also told him if he could make or attempt to try to make his art style into Neil Adams as the years rounded out, which was something that he didn't know if he completely wanted to do, which made him switch over to Marvel for the long time being. But it is, I think, an interesting case and note in how these pages and books were introduced back to people in the late 50s, early 60s. And of course, he would draw Supergirl for 6 more years after this. And I'm very interested to see where they decide to go with Supergirl from here, and how many of the issues that are going to be interconnected with Legion. There are some other Legion characters that do show up in here, along with Brainiac 5, who is prominently featured in these books, and I do hope we get to see that in a future story. We do also have Streaky, who is very much an important character in Supergirl's mythos, as she is still incredibly famous today. And I love these cat, Crypto, Streaky the cat, Crypto the dog team-up issues. I think there's a novelty to it that just makes some of these stories fun. And again, getting to see that, okay, if Supergirl can have a cat, or a pet, it needs to be something equal or as equal as Superman. I think in that case, Streaky is just almost as iconic as Crypto, the super dog, as Streaky is in their own right. But I think that this is a very interesting case and issue, because a lot of these stories, personally, I had no idea what to expect. And I hope that DC gets to do more Supergirl books. I have no idea where they decide to go with after this. Maybe it's a little bit of jumping around. Maybe we get immediately to Peter David. Maybe it's mid-2000s where it's a completely different car. She has been revamped so many times to the point where I am actually surprised that people haven't compared her to Donna Troy in that case, of which origin story do you have, who are you going by, which Earth are you from, and it's all going to be consolidated once we get to Crisis on Infinite Earths. But there are a lot of fun stories in here that are collected in this DC Finest. As far as extras are concerned, it's pretty much the same as all the other books, with a long timeline and also putting out other issues or other trade paperbacks that they have of the line and featuring some of that stuff out. We do have Green Arrow that is coming out next week if you are watching this on the week of this. But I very much enjoyed a lot of the issues that are in here. But that, as they say, is that. Now, if you're looking to buy Supergirl, the Girl of Steel DC Finest, you can check it out with our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walts Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code NEARMINTCONDITION at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
That is going to be it for me. I am Domovex. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're thinking of picking this DC Finest up. That is going to be it for me. Stay fresh, Minties, and take care. Please stay safe.